Hello, everyone. Last minute movies here. We're finally back with the podcast. It's been like how long since we've done one of these things
Like
again?
2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been not even two. I mean, like actually recorded. It's
Oh,
probably been like
six
a month or
months.
so. Oh, holy
Yeah,
shit!
bro.
Really? Wow.
We last podcast was the Groundhog Day, and we recorded that early February, so it's been a
Damn.
minute. But hey,
Yeah,
that's in the name.
It's been it's been so long that we've now been referred to as a reaction channel. Like if you look in one of our videos, you'll see that comment. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, Igor, we absolutely have to record another fucking podcast because I don't want to be known as a reaction channel.
Yep.
So today,
we're more
you're
than
here to-
that.
we're more than that. Come on, guys. We're more than that. We're not shallow.
Mhm.
So today we're gonna be talking about a film that we both really enjoy. Our first DreamWorks film. Igor, take it away. What are we watching?
Ooh. How to Train Your Dragon, which you probably learned from the title. Yeah.
And the thumbnail.
And the thumbnail.
And the posts.
And the posts. And everything else.
And a lot of things.
Literally, yeah. But it's a very special movie for both of us because I was actually introduced to it through books. They used to read it to us in pre-K back in Russia, and little Igor would like fall asleep with all the other kids while it was being read to us in Russian. And
In Soviet Russia, Dragon trained you.
that's basically it. And I mean, not that the movie stays loyal to source material, but it definitely captures the aesthetic really well. And yeah, I just kind of have a lot of thoughts about it. And we should probably make the second and the third movies as well later in life.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like this is like this trilogy is just amazing. Like this first movie's good, but the second movie and then the third movie, like the films just seem the scale gets higher, the stakes get higher, it gets darker. It's just like it's really good trilogy. If like in my opinion, it's not my favorite trilogy because the Lord of the Rings is my favorite trilogy of all time.
It's hard to beat that
We'll
one.
talk. Yeah, well, it's very hard. But I think this is the most underrated trilogy of films ever, in my opinion.
Really?
Like when people, yeah, I think when people talk about this film and they're like, oh, when they talk about trilogies, they're like, oh, Star Wars or
Yeah.
Indiana Jones or Lord of the Rings, although Lord of the Rings deserves it,
Yeah.
and all these other trilogies, or like Toy Story, but they never talk about this trilogy at all. And I just think that although like these films are very popular and if it's launched a franchise, I actually think that this trilogy in general has kind of been horrendously downplayed because people are just like, okay, it's a good movie, it's not like training dragons and all that, it's awesome. But if you actually like delve deep into the story that it's trying to tell and all the technical parts of it, the screenwriting, the plot, everything like that, it's actually a lot better than you think. And we're going to give it the justice that it deserves today. So let's carry on. And a little, history on how I relate to this film. I was one of those people that was underrating it. I saw the trailer when I was like, I don't know, 9 years old or something like that. And I was like, How to Train Your Dragon, this like looks fucking stupid. Like, what is this shit? I'm like, this looks so dumb. Like, in DreamWorks, DreamWorks wasn't doing too well. It was doing okay. There was a Kung Fu Panda, of course.
Yeah.
But then there was also ones like,
You like jazz?
How dare you shit on B movie? Arguably one of the best films of all time. The exquisite piece of cinema.
Okay, but
Don't you get it? It's in the name. They call it the
my
bee
God.
movie because it's about
Oh,
bees. And just like this
Alright.
movie, How to Train Your
But no,
Dragon, and it's about
but seriously,
dragons.
But seriously, like DreamWorks is very hit or miss. Like either it's really good, or it's like the B movie in Shrek 3. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that facts. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think Shrek 3 is as bad as B movie.
It's bad.
It's-
I mean, it's not as bad, but it's bad.
Okay,
It's really bad.
you see, this is something I also wanted to get out of the way. If we bring DreamWorks into this channel as a concept altogether, that means eventually we'll talk about Shrek movies, and I promise we're gonna make that into something special, because honestly, Shrek is one of the best movies ever made, and Shrek 2 has given us so much amazing shit, including the best music scene ever made in cinema, like hands down.
The memes! Come on, guys!
And the
Who doesn't
memes.
like internet memes? Yeah.
But
All right.
let's get to the task at hand.
Yeah, and enough about Shrek memes. I mean,
well,
you know, we could we don't have,
Never.
If we continue down this road, we're gonna reach a point of the internet where we're not gonna, you know, we just need to move on before something else comes up. So, Igor, give us the basic plot of How to Train Your Dragon.
Every time you make
You're
me
the
do
plot
this,
guy.
and every time I suffer. Okay.
It's a
I
tradition.
just can't compress plots for shit. It's my problem. But here, I think this one is fairly straightforward, so I'm gonna go for it. So this is Bjork. No, that's
Continue.
Yeah, I mean, they could have lost the narration in the beginning, but basically there's this main character, Hiccup, who lives in this village full of Vikings that fight dragons on a daily basis, that come in, root and pillage their village and steal their food, and they need to survive the winter. So your typical day in Siberia. And living in the society of Vikings, he's kind of being looked down upon. He can fight for shit. He's kind of a wimp, and for some reason nobody else in the village is a wimp. Everyone else is like a skilled fighter. And
they're Vikings.
Yeah, and there's this
So
one
of course
dragon
they are.
that nobody can kill called Night Fury. It's practically like invisible. It's really fast. The Vikings are terrified of it. And he managed to shoot one down amidst the battle, and nobody believes him that he did it because everyone keeps bullying him. The movie is like really consistent on bullying, and
I know. Like even towards the end, they're still fucking with him. It's like
yeah,
hilarious.
and
It's like
it works though. Like
it's like okay, yeah, he's good at taming dragons and beating them now, but he was still a pussy back in the day.
he's still
you know what I'm
roastable,
saying?
man. So yeah, he's also a son of the leader of the village too. I don't want to say a chief because that's probably not the right term, but the point is, so he shoots down Night Fury, and he's like, oh my god, this is gonna be great, you know, things are gonna work out. The next day he goes look for it. After a long search, he finds it. He approaches it, and he's about to cut out its heart, and he is too much of a wimp. He's not gonna do it. They make eye contact, and you know, eventually it turns out that the Night Fury cannot fly because the part of its tail is damaged, which I think was just like a genius idea altogether. Like they really went for it and went into the detail of like, how will this dragon world, dragon anatomy work? And it's just really nice. You know, it's like they're like, yeah, dragons don't exist, but if we make them exist, we might as well go all in, and it's just great.
Yeah, and another thing too is like that's something that the film doesn't really like. When you think about it, you're like, whoa, it's like Hiccup caused that injury to Toothless.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like he basically fucking crippled him.
He is the one who.
Which is, you know, it's funny. Like you know, later on in the movie when like Toothless saves him from being killed, and it's just like, you know, everything comes full circle. But
also to an extent, because so later in the story, right, he makes eye contact with the dragon, and then there's this beautiful kind of sequences where he tries to learn more about the dragon, and he finds out that he's not actually like 100% murder machine. There's some perception going on there. So Hiccup and the dragon named Toothless are, you know, later going to just develop a bond. Eventually, yeah. Hiccup finds out that, like, you know, Toothless cannot fly because of the tail injury he gave him while shooting him down. So eventually Hiccup gets an idea, and he creates this little kind of prosthetic feathering for the dragon tail. And
like this,
then tries to use
like
it.
a prosthetic wing.
Yeah. And honestly, that montage of him making it is so short, but I love it so fucking much. We can like talk about that later.
Yeah.
Just the detail work is really awesome. But as the story goes on, he tries to learn to fly him by using that prosthetic and like opening and closing it. It's really awesome. And while he does it, he also learns about how the dragons behave and how they do things. So he basically does the thing that, you know, he learns that you can do things to dragons other than killing them. You can interact with them, you can study them, and he just has this...
yeah, you can feed them,
Yeah.
you can pet them, they'll like... And all of that.
And
yeah,
like,
so
like
he,
you.
he yeah, and he's learning all of this from Toothless. Oh, sorry. You're right.
I'm in this, boy. While he kind of learns about the dragon's habits and things of that nature, he also kind of learns how to slay them in the village with all the peers of his that are also like the kids. And while they're learning to kill them with axes and shields and use ways and techniques to murder a dragon before the dragon murders you, he finds ways to, like, there's, for example, dragons also hate smell of eel, and he can just, like, hold it in front of a dragon's face, and dragon will, like, back away and, like, not want to attack you.
Like, pet them.
Or pet them,
like
scratch them at the right place, and they will stop being aggressive. Let them smell a piece of grass and stuff like that.
Kill them with kindness.
Exactly, kill them with kindness, And it works. Like, he starts to be really, really good at quote-unquote dragon slaying and kind of moves up the ranks in the village. He's no longer hated. He's kind of like a really big celebrity now because he knows how to tame dragons without, like, like no other in that sense.
Yeah, it's like finally they recognize him for the massive balls that he has. They don't even know that he could fucking ride a dragon yet. So
the problem is that Toothless is still in the forest, and his friend Astrid, who has this massive crush on, finds out about him. And Astrid used to be this, like, awesome ass, lady dragon slayer in the village, and she was like the top of the class, and she's like the hottest person in the village, and he really has a crush on her. And she happens to find where he keeps Toothless in this, like, cave lake type area. Deep in the forest. So they take her for a ride because initially she tries to kill him, she tries to defend Hiccup, she tries to kill Toothless, but then Toothless kind of disappears, and they pick her up and they take her for a ride, and they fly together, and it's like this big revelation Astrid is having from wanting to kill dragons to wanting to, like, get to know them better.
It's basically Viking, like, Aladdin, like, I can show you the world.
Literally.
Like that shit, a whole new world.
It's just like the fucking flying carpet sequence, except on dragons. And, a lot more aesthetically pleasing in terms of capturing just, like, the beauty of flight as a concept.
Oh yeah, and the scale and everything like that. And the use of non-diegetic sound, and how like cause it's set in a Viking fantasy world, but the way that they use modern, like, music and shit like that for specific scenes that require the beauty is, like, it's really good. Like, you would think it's a bad combo, but it's actually, like, really, really good because of the scale and the romanticism of a flying dragon.
Yep.
So
it's the
good job,
perfect
filmmakers.
combination.
That was awesome.
It's a perfect combination of brilliantly executed visuals with beautifully created music. And I gotta say that, like, I think the music in this movie, hands down, is, like, the second best in DreamWorks library altogether. The first one being Shrek, but
yeah, you're gonna just disregard Kung Fu Panda, bro? Come on.
Kung Fu Panda, it had a sick soundtrack. I think this one is better. I think Kung Fu Panda is a really close third.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hot take.
Yeah, so as the story goes on, it kind of, it all starts to unravel on itself. Astrid knows that Toothless is harmless, but like nobody else in the village does. And eventually, as Hiccup progresses, he's now the biggest badass in the village, and he has to do this thing in the end where he gets to slay his first dragon because he's like the best student, he's really good at it. And in the middle of this giant kind of,
and he has to because his dad is literally the leader of their fucking
but I mean, otherwise,
village or whatever.
I mean, any like top student would be slaying their first dragon that way. It's a ritual.
True. But it's really special because he's the son of the leader.
Yep.
It's like royalty shit.
So, and that's where shit starts to hit the fan. So Hiccup is now in this arena where he's supposed to slay him, and he's trying to, and that moment he decides that this is his chance to kind of demonstrate to the whole village that dragons aren't necessarily bad. And then he tries to, like, kind of tame the dragon that is in front of him, that is a very different type of dragon, a lot more scary looking. And, as he tries to kind of progress with it and he starts trying to address everybody, the dragon gets scared off, and, some fighting breaks out. And it's funny because, like, Toothless, from all the other side of the island, feels that, Hiccup is in danger, and he, like, rushes his way to the arena, breaks into the arena that is surrounded by pretty much the entire village worth of, dragon-slaying Vikings. And they all see that there's a fucking Night Fury in the middle of all of it, and they all jump to get him, and they seize him.
And no one has, like, ever seen... Yeah, and the thing is that Night Furies are, like, super rare because no one's ever seen them because they camouflage perfectly at night. and they don't take any food or anything like that.
Yep.
So like the fact that this is like, and it's like one of the most dangerous dragons ever. So it's like, people are like, holy shit, you know.
Yep.
So they all, you know, like, you know, they pull like, you know, some, you know, hood shit, and they all like gang up on it and just take him down and like, you know, and all of that shit.
Basically. So
and all of that.
Yeah, as the story progresses, his father resents him like all over again. You know, it's so funny because he was just getting bullied.
You're no son of mine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like crazy.
Never should have come here. Fucking Skyrim NPC.
By the way, this movie does have pretty good Skyrim vibes to it. I'm not gonna lie. If Skyrim was actually good at flying, kind of, but you know.
Oh yeah, well.
Skyrim isn't bad at flying. It's just.
The game engine's so old.
Yeah. Like, I mean, don't mean to shit on Skyrim. It's an amazing game, but you know.
This is last minute movies, not last minute video games.
You mean last minute gaming? The channel we have in development right now, we shouldn't talk about.
Oh.
Yeah, you all find out about this shit later.
Spoiler alert.
But so as the story progresses on, you know, he's at a low point again. They take Toothless and like, oh shit, I missed out the whole dragon cave thing. That's what happens when you rush it. While they fly with Astrid, you know, while they take the whole flying carpet Aladdin situation, it is followed by this amazing sequence where Toothless gets some kind of call from elsewhere, and he just kind of starts flying uncontrollably. Like, you know, they couldn't change his direction, so just kind of stick with it, both of them on his back, and he flies to this giant kind of hive, the nest of all the dragons, somewhere in like the Foggy Islands, somewhere there where the Vikings don't really know where.
The Misty Mountains.
The Misty Mountains. And they find out that there is this kind of queen dragon that exists in that in the mountains. In the island, and it kind of.
And the reason why the dragons are attacking the, you know, and taking the food and taking the sheep and livestock and all that is to sacrifice it to the queen or king dragon, so that big dragon won't like eat all of them.
In other words,
so, like,
they ransack and pillage their village all the time, not to eat the food on their own. They are just bringing all of it to the queen, and it's kind of fucked up like that. And you know, like they kind of realize that the dragons are going through their own ordeal and their own power structure that kind of forces them to, you know, just keep killing humans. And yeah, so as the Night Fury is captured, Hiccup kind of talks to his father resents him and shit, and in the process Hiccup tells him about the nest, and then they saw the nest, and then the father goes like, you saw the nest, you didn't tell me? And then you're like, oh shit, this is not getting any worse. So his father basically,
it gets worse.
Yep. His father lines up the whole village, takes the Night Fury, they lock it up in one of the ships, and they just take off to the nest because they want to take it by the storm and just like destroy the nest and, you know, liberate their village, which is like, it's a decent line of thinking, but it's a line of thinking that is a little outdated, as we learned in the movie, because, you know, it's probably gonna kill all of them anyways.
Yeah, they thought they were gonna meet like a dragon, and they met fucking like Godzilla.
Yep, yeah, no, it's a fucking Godzilla awakening. That shit is huge. But as the story progresses, as the ships leave and pretty much there's nobody else left in the village except Hiccup and all the kind of dragon slaying students, his friends, he's now friends. Him and Astrid do this thing where they just, you know, each person gets a dragon, and they take 5 dragons, or like 4, I think, and they fly, and they catch up with the fleet right once the fleet, like, you know, gets to the cave using Toothless, the Night Fury, to just kind of, you know, sniff it out for them to find the direction. But then they get there and they break through this outer wall. They see the massive amounts of dragons there that all just fly out as if they don't want to fight. And then Godzilla comes out. It starts to just like destroy everything. The queen is just like,
the big CGI monster comes out, and, you know,
yeah, well, it's all CGI.
Yeah, well, it's all CGI, but you know how it is.
And
but unlike trash like Batman vs Superman, where it's just dumb.
Yep.
This one is like actually really cool, because like all of the ways that they use to defeat that like big alpha dragon is what you've learned through the plot. So remember the point where like they blast him in the mouth, which kind of like explodes him. You Hiccup saw that earlier, when the mini dragon was trying to steal fish from Toothless.
Yeah.
And he shot fire into his mouth, which kind of like blew him up a little bit.
Which caused him to like implode a little bit, but that was like a cute moment, and it seems like, you know, that's something that they just kind of transferred into the final fight. But yeah, so Hiccup is there, and they you know, they start fighting, and you know, the whole team of other dragon riders, they start to like distract that big dragon. In the meantime, Hiccup lands on this like burning ship where Toothless is still confined. The ship starts to sink, and his father appears, and he frees Toothless, and he goes like, you know, they have a whole father-son moment there where Hiccup is like on top of Toothless about to take off, and his dad's like, "I'm sorry.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. I was wrong. I take everything back." But yeah, and then, you know, and then Hiccup and Toothless, they face off against the Queen. They kill Godzilla in the skies in a really epically executed battle. Like, I love every moment of it so much. Even though, I think at the final battle, all the secondary characters get a little annoying. But other than that, like, you know, the way it's executed is just so awesome. And in the end, Hiccup ironically loses a limb. And this movie is still PG, in case if you didn't know.
He loses his foot. He loses his left foot.
Which is identical to the fin that Toothless lost on his tail. And that's kind of the story.
Yeah.
And then they all live happily ever after because humans knew how to tame dragons, and he shared that knowledge, and his friends all know it now, and Astrid is there to kind of help them out. His dad had that realization and everything, and, you know, the whole village saw these dragons swarm in and help. So now humans and dragons live in peace forever until there's the next movie that's gonna fuck it all up again.
Exactly. Alright, so with that being said, now that we've gone through the plot, let's suck this movie off. Let's talk about the world building and the design. This movie is fucking awesome when it comes to world building and design. So, like, before we get to, like, all of the technical stuff, Igor, well, actually, you've been speaking for a while, so I'll go. So, actually, so I want to talk about, like, how, like, some cool facts of this movie, like, some really cool things that you learn.
Mm-hmm.
So, how they design these dragons. So, apparently, Toothless's like physical appearance and behavior is like a combination of like 10 different animals.
Mm-hmm.
So they said like Toothless is a cross between like a black panther, a bat, and a small bird of prey. He also has some snake-like influences in his design. His behavior is a mixture of like a cat, a dog, a horse, and a lot of other like weird animals like wombats and kangaroos. So something that I think is really, really cool about that is the fact that like due to all of the different animals that they took, like the animal behaviors and physical attributes that they took from other animals, you connect that much more with Toothless because he actually like has a personality and he's very expressive. Like he can't talk or anything like that, but it's almost like he is talking.
Yeah.
Just with his movements alone. Whereas the other dragons, it's very like, you know, kind of typical.
They're kind of cartoony to me, to be honest.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. They all have sick-ass designs, right? Especially the one that can, like, combust itself. That shit is fucking awesome. But Toothless, by far, is the most, like, animated and, like, almost, like, has, like, humanistic qualities to him just because of all of the other animals that it took inspiration from. And I actually think that's just a really cool thing. You know, like, they did something like that in Jurassic Park where it was with sound, but they took all these different like animal sounds in order to create the T-Rex roar.
Oh.
So they took like the sound of like a tiger mixed with like a bunch of other animals which created the Tyrannosaurus Rex's like roar. So it felt more like, I don't want to say realistic because we still don't really know what a Tyrannosaurus Rex sounds like. But it makes it, like, when you hear that roar, you're like, oh god, it's like hearing an actual animal. And when you see Toothless, you see, like, whenever Toothless interacts with something, like, with Hiccup, I'm like, huh, it reminds me of, like, me and my dog, or me and my cat and all that. So I think that's really cool. Another thing that I thought was really, really cool, so remember we actually, Igor and I watched the film, like, just now together. And we were talking, we were like, man, the flight, I mean, you know, it's unrealistic that someone's going to be flying a fucking dragon, right? But, like, But what we were saying is that the mechanics of flight and the physics of the flight seem super realistic. So apparently the animators actually had to attend flight school.
Oh shit, really?
Yeah, so during production they had to go to flight school so that they could study like flight physics, movements for the different creatures and just for the humans and all of that in order to create like realistic caricatures and all of that of, you know, the dragons flying. So I thought that was really cool because we were talking real like, wow, this seems like really realistic in a weird way, but like it's because of the fact it's those little details right there where you know what you're like in filmmaking, where if you focus on like said perfect, like for example Whiplash, right? You probably need to know a lot about music to make a film like that, or at least you need to know a lot about it so that it's that good. Like I'm confident that if the person who was directing the film didn't know that much about music and didn't have a background about music, the film would not have been as good as it was.
Yeah.
So it really just goes to show that as a filmmaker, when you're entering these worlds of like flight or like martial arts or whatever, you really should take the time to know what the hell you're going to make a film about.
Well, there's flight, there's wings, and you know, you feel like that. There's this constant feeling of that sound that comes in, and I think
there's mechanics
and all of that definitely came from the thing you talked about. Like I can see it now. Like it just makes perfect sense now. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's really. I know. Yeah, right. When I saw that, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And going on about like the whole like the world building aspects of it, I just want to take a moment to say that like this is literally one of the best openings ever in a film.
Yes.
Because it establishes so much and there's so much going on. So it establishes like putting them in the middle of the conflict with the dragons makes you understand the kind of people that you're dealing with in the Viking culture. Without anybody ever really needing to say like, I mean, not Toothless,
Hiccup.
sorry. Hiccup does say, Toothless can't say anything. Hiccup, you know, he tells you like, oh, we're Vikings, we're tough, blah, blah, blah. He does say that, but he doesn't really need to say that because you can see it.
Well,
when they're getting attacked by the dragons, you see them like, they're like, let's get them, and they're like, the pain.
Yeah,
and, you know,
but you know,
they're like fucking.
I gotta say, in regards to that narration in the beginning, right? I can see how it can get annoying, especially when the second and a third movies, they both utilize it a lot because they try to keep consistent and all. But like in the first movie, what's really good about that opening is that in the first 6 minutes, they managed to have him narrate kind of his own stakes and his own situation so that we can be with his character through that narration. But in the meantime, they visually convey all these other things. They show you all these different types of dragons. They show how they work without necessarily talking about it. We just kind of visually see it.
Exactly.
And it's amazing.
You see, like, you understand the world. Okay, this is what the fucking opening does. It's like the first fucking like 10 minutes of the movie. This is what it does. It establishes the world. It establishes the dragons. It establishes who Toothless is and how people react around him, and it puts in like the fucking what's it called?
The stakes? The inciting incident?
Not the stake. Yeah, the inciting incident. All of that is in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Bro,
he fucking shoots down Toothless on minute 6. On minute 6.
Exactly.
That's so good.
And
do you know how many movies can do this?
Yeah.
How many movies take all the time in the world just like introducing the character? You know, like I know so many screenwriters that love to start the movie with like the character wakes up in his bed, and I was like, yeah, great. You know, exactly. I see how this works.
Like if this was like a lesser movie, he would have been like gotten out of bed, and then the dad would have been like, "You're disappointing," and then he would be like, "Oh no," and then the dragons would have attacked, and then he would have shot it down. But we see it through instead of bullshit like that. Instead of needing to tell us, they show us through behavior, people reacting to, and this is an animated film, right? So it's like even more special in my opinion. Because, you know, it's kind of hard sometimes to show, like, behavior and things like touch and smell and all of that kind of stuff. It's hard to get across that in animation unless you're Spider-Verse.
Bro, I could smell that fish when Toothless regurgitated it the first time.
Exactly. Or the grass. You could feel the grass and all of that. Or, all of that. And establishes the scale. So I just think that like the first 10 minutes, like the opening of the film, is like a fucking masterpiece in how to open a film. It's like it's one of the greatest openings of all time, in my opinion. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
From a screenwriting perspective, like the film does such a good job of like being like it's a simple story, but I will say that like the way it's like you've mastered the basics of your screenwriting. Once you do that, you can put so many other things into it that make it that much better. Like it's not trying to bog you down with all this like overcomplicated shit like Tenet, you know. And we liked Tenet, but most of the time we were if you saw our reaction video, we were like, what the fuck is going on here? You know what I'm
just
saying?
like, what is happening
but,
when?
like,
What is the chronology?
What is happening? But because of how simple the story is, it actually gave you time to like it had enough in it to be like, all right, let's start with some of the complicated stuff as well. Like it made sense that it was in there. It felt natural instead of feeling unnatural. Like with the plot A and plot B. So there's plot A where it's like his relationship with his village and the rest of the Vikings, and they see him as like a pussy and all of that. But then there's plot B where he's like essentially taking care of Toothless, and he's learning about the dragons. And we see how brilliantly plot A and plot B are used together. So from like 1 minute, it'll go from like, it'll be like, oh, well, we're teaching you how to kill a dragon. Dragons never show mercy. And then in the next, it would actually no. So he saves Toothless, right? And in plot B, like, oh my gosh, I just saved this Night Fury dragon because I couldn't kill it. And then they go back to plot A, and they're like, the dragons will always kill you. But then he'll be like, but wait, Toothless didn't kill me when I saved him. So then it'll go back to plot B, and then it'll be all like, why didn't you do anything like that? And then you start learning about the dragons, and then he starts learning how to take them down and like pet them, and he's learning about their mechanics, which goes back to plot A, where it's all like he's doing all these things, and the villagers are seeing him like, hey, like he's actually really good, with all of this. So it's just a brilliant way of using two different plot lines, and they're both needed and necessary. It's not like it's one plot line. It's not like plot line A is any less than plot line B. They're both equal.
And
you know what I'm saying?
And in terms of release of information too, I just love the fact that like, on one hand it is an opposing kind of worlds that he is in, which creates a lot of tension, right? He's surrounded by humans that hate dragons and think that he's one of them. He wants to kill them just like the rest of them. And then he's with Toothless, who like knows that he's not about that. But while that creates tension, at the same time, so much release of information is happening on both sides, like you said. And honestly, like one of my favorite moments is like just this drawing contrast so beautifully, where he reads that book with all these other dragon designs that are, I gotta say, like all the dragons that all the new species of dragons that they discover in that book when he reads it, they all look so much scarier than the shit we've seen so far. And a part of me really wishes I could see that there.
That would be
but like,
like all the rated R shit, like its fucking like breath will like explode you, or it shoots boiling water which will explode your
turns
face,
its victims inside out.
Turn you inside out, or turns you into acid, like
and honestly, like I gotta say, for it's both a pro and a con for these films. The pro is that it's a PG movie that has things like limb loss and like tragedy and massive amounts of destruction and fighting and, giant lizards that, shoot flames, and there's massive scale of destruction and a lot of implied death too. And like, you feel it from the acting, and you feel that, from the characters, but you don't see any of it. And a movie that, the genre like this would kind of almost demand a little bit of that gore, like, a little bit of blood, a little bit of... We need to see and feel death in that world that is happening in order to fully understand the stakes. If it was any other way, right? Like, if the movie was not PG, if the movie was rated R, we would see these Vikings get shredded by those dragons. We would see these dragons be these murder machines. And I think actually in the long run, right, and like, again, this just made me want to have a rated R How to Train Your Dragon version of it, because...
Just play Skyrim.
Yeah, I would really like to feel the conflict that Hiccup has, with like trying to grow affectionate towards these dragons. while also seeing people have like their limbs ripped out and them being eaten alive while just like screaming in agony. Or maybe, you know, like they already have a lot of Vikings in the village that don't have limbs, so they have a bunch of prosthetics, and it's like there's a whole segue on that, and it's pretty awesome. But, you know, again, it's also a loss of a fucking limb, and the way it can be portrayed in a rated R movie would feel so different. It can be absolutely used for the plot. Like, that's why I want it, because I think that would just make the plot so much more interesting, but it's absolutely no longer going to be a kid's movie, so...
Yeah, at that point. But at the end of the day, this is way more than just like, oh, the kids film and why it's successful.
Yeah.
It's successful because of the story, because of the fact that we feel empathy for Toothless, you know, Hiccup and all of that. And the fact that like Hiccup comes from this like ultra like masculine like Viking society, and they're like, I'm gonna take the dragon's heart or its head and mount it on my, you know, throne or whatever. But then, you know, we see him build this friendship with Toothless, because Toothless is, you know, helpless in a lot of ways because he's kind of crippled because he doesn't have the wing. And we see Hiccup, you know, making you know, the wing for him. And then towards the end, we see, you know, Toothless do the same thing in saving Hiccup. And it's just like, it's really a story of like friendship. And as Hiccup says, he's like, I saw myself in him. I saw this guy who was just, you know, scared and vulnerable. And that's exactly how I felt. I think it's really cool because, you know, the underlying theme of this movie is really empathy. Yeah. And I think it's so genius to have a film where the thematic truth is like, you know, empathy leads to this, or happiness or acceptance or whatever. And then you put in this like fucking Viking society where, if you know anything about the Vikings, there's not a lot of empathy.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that was like a really like smart choice. Yeah. Like I think that was done on purpose.
And honestly,
so I applaud the creators
right,
for
thinking about it from just the morality standpoint, wouldn't the world be such a better fucking place? And I'm like, you know, right now there's this one thing on the news that keeps coming back, and it's been going on for a very many decades. There's this one place on Earth where there's a lot of war going on that's like in the middle of the East. And, you know, thinking about that in the context of what this movie is trying to tell us, wouldn't it be fucking awesome if every, like, person on Earth would try to empathize with their enemy as hard as they could and understand each other. Yeah. The same way these two, like, you know, it's literally Battle of the Species in this movie, right? Like, you know, the same way they understood each other in this movie. I mean, it takes someone to push this. It takes someone strong-willed as Hiccup to do something like that. And there's actually something beautiful about him. Like, even though he's bullied by everyone, even though he's, like, totally resented for what he does and how he does it and kind of for who he is, he, not at any point in the movie does he, like, break. Not at any point in the movie does he turn down his morals. Even when Toothless is about to, like, be captured, or, you know, there's a likelihood of Toothless being captured and killed. There's likelihood of him getting hurt by, like, literally his own people, when his own father just kind of resents it for the second time.
We said it while we were watching the movie. We're like, how is Toothless able to carry Hiccup because of Hiccup's balls of steel? Like,
literally.
You know? Yeah, but I think you're like, I think you're correct, because like it, you know, it's funny now that we're talking about this. I actually feel like the movie's like getting better and better for me, because it's actually like fucking beautiful. Because it's you know, a lot of films would be like, have empathy and everything will be okay, but with Hiccup's story, it's like he was bullied and he really had to find the inner strength in order to push to show people that dragons are not what they seem, and that they have empathy, and that they can be, and they can love, and they can have all these other things as well, and that, you know, we're all kind of one and the same. But the fact that he still lost a limb, like, it goes to show you that even though you're gonna have empathy, and even though you want to change the way society works, it's still a struggle and it's still hard. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, because I think people, especially in this day and age, they're so used to, like, they just want things to happen without any struggle, or they want to improve their lives without any struggle. And I think it's teaching you that, like, if you want to improve yourself, improve your life, improve the society around you, it takes hard work. and it takes a push.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You might not like it, but you have to endure it. And I think that's just such a beautiful like moral. That, you know,
it's amazing.
this film is so good.
The effort, the amount of effort, and the amount of like, you know, just power and kind of sacrifice that goes into turning society around. Because that's kind of what happens, right? In the end of the day, the whole thing is taking a full 180, and they no longer hate dragons.
Yeah, they're about to like get exploded and shit, and then they learn. You know what I'm saying? Like it takes that like for them to almost all die. Yep. For them to learn, like, you know,
and you see, it's just kind of goes to show how hard it is to stop a war that's been going on for generations. Like that doesn't happen in a day, and it takes someone new, someone young, kind of like to step in and then challenge
and
this
show you.
And hopefully succeed. It's just, you know, the world we live in is kind of dumb like that. But
yeah, and it does, but in this film does an excellent way of showing you that traditions of old and new can come in hand and work together.
Yep.
Like, once you see in the second and third movies, you see these Vikings that are more dangerous than ever and more formidable than ever, writing the things that they once hated that they considered an enemy. It just goes to show you that, like, if you can come together, you can become so much more powerful.
Yep. Facts.
So, I just think that's, you know, it's beautiful. It really is. This film, again, like I said, this is the most underrated trilogy of all time. So, like, yeah. No one thinks about these things when they think about How to Train Your Dragon. They just like, oh yeah, dragons and exploding things and blah, blah, blah.
Facts.
But another reason why this film is so fucking special is because you'll never believe who they had a consultant to. They consulted with Roger Deakins.
You're right. I was going to cream myself.
Yeah, see, told you.
Of course they did. What the fuck else?
Yeah,
what the fuck else would come up with visuals like this?
He's the consultant for all three films.
Wow.
So, like, I know. Yeah, so the reason why it looks so good, especially the third film, is because the fact that he's giving them, like, lighting point. Because, you know, like, even in animation, you still need lighting. So the fact that the lighting was so good, which enhanced the animation, which, you know, lighting in animation, very underrated thing. I'm not much of an animator, but I have animator friends. And
lighting is everything, honestly. That's what makes things feel realistic.
And lighting's very important, exactly. And the fact that they got him, of all people, to fucking, you know, be a consultant of that, it just, you know.
So good. What the fuck, man?
It makes it even better. I know. I mean, like, for people who don't know, this is the guy that did cinematography for Blade Runner 2049, 1917.
Keep them coming. There's more.
Like,
there's more.
All right, No Country for Old Men, Skyfall, Fargo. You know, like, so much shit, like, so much good shit.
Basically, any movie that
Shawshank Redemption, The Big Lebowski. Like, literally,
Stop,
this is the greatest. Rango. This is the greatest cinematographer ever. Like, like one of the goats. So, like, you know.
Yep.
There's a lot of talent behind this.
Yep.
So yeah.
That's true. And like, honestly, fuck yeah. Like, you see, it's just for me knowing that the movie looks gorgeous as it is, but knowing that there is the genius of Roger Deakins kind of, you know, tied into all of that, it just makes it even better. It justifies it more, I guess.
It enhances it. Yeah. It makes it feel more, it makes it feel like really special.
Yeah. Anyways.
All right. This has been the Last Minute Movie Podcast. It's been so long since we've done one of these. We're gonna record more like tomorrow and all that kind of stuff. So be on the watch out for more videos. And with that, we'll talk to y'all later. Peace out, y'all.
Signing out. Good night, everybody.